This cruise from Southampton to Southampton covered Tenerife, the Caribbean and Madeira. After 4 sea days, the ship docked in Santa Cruz, Tenerife. Our excursion in Tenerife was via the cable car to the summit of Mount Teide. The volcano sits in a vast caldera, about 17 kilometers in circumference. The view back down to Santa Cruz, Tenerife. There was some interesting geological layering that was observed on the way back down to Santa Cruz. On our return to the ship, the ship's captain had to unfortunately announce that there was a medical emergency with a member of the crew and that he had to be taken off the ship as soon as possible and sent to hospital. It was not possible for one reason or another to do this in Tenerife or apparently anywhere else in the Canary Islands, and so we had to sail back the best part of a day north to Madeira, where he would then be taken off and the decision would then be made as to how we would proceed with the cruise. The eventual decision was that as we'd effectively lost a whole day, we would proceed directly to Bridgetown, Barbados. That is, we would miss out stopping in Grenada. On arrival in Barbados, we joined our planned excursion to Harrison's Cave, which is an underground cave with an underground river and extensive stalactite and stalagmite formations. We travelled in a sort of buggy which rolled along down through various passageways.
of the gate, okay? So that's why we're circling right now. Okay? So please don't get off the tram. We will come and get it for you. Now this depiction model was made in Montreal, Canada. So everyone get ready, get your passports ready, your suitcases packed. We're going to be back here in 20,000 years to see when that becomes a column. Just come back and ask to see.
We didn't have any excursion planned or booked for Castries St. Lucia. So basically we just got off the ship and intended just to roam around the town for a couple of hours, maybe have something to, a cup of coffee or something somewhere, and then get back on board eventually. I'm sure that St. Lucia is a very nice place to visit, and Castries may be quite a nice town. But the problem when we got off and passed through the cruise terminal was that we were met with, quite an unexpected situation, shall we say. The road outside the terminal was quite narrow, 2 lanes, but the traffic was absolutely and utterly horrendous. There were cars in various stages of trying to overtake one another or maneuver around whatever people, etc. And lots also of heavy trucks sort of trying to move backwards and forwards. So the whole thing was a bit of a mess. Also, there were a lot of street traders that parked themselves on the pavement. So walking on the pavement was a bit of a bit difficult as well. So all in all, it was just a dreadful place. And we decided, well, we could try and get out of this and move out to somewhere a bit more pleasant. But we just had enough of this, and we just turned on our heels, went back into the cruise terminal, and caught the tender back to the ship. Basically, it was all a bit disappointing, really. The ship docked for 2 days in Willemstad, Curaçao, which enabled us to both explore Curaçao, Willemstad itself, which is quite an interesting town, and also to have a nice excursion in a mini submarine, which I'll explain in a short while. Willemstad is a pleasant town, though very touristy when we were there. The town is split in two by a wide river that flows directly through the centre. There's a high-level bridge for road traffic only. Pedestrians are not permitted to use it. Pedestrians must use either a small ferry or something I've never seen before, a pontoon bridge that floats on the water and is constructed in sections to make it flexible. It bends. The whole contraption is mechanised and controlled from a small control box at the head of the bridge. This takes many more people than the ferry, but it can only operate when there's no river traffic, so it can only be used intermittently. We walked across when it eventually opened, and the experience was like being on a small boat in rough seas, rocking and rolling. For our second day in Willemstad, we went on an excursion in a so-called mini-sub. This turned out to be a motorboat seating 30 to 40 people, with stairs leading down to the hull, which was essentially a second seating area with windows, providing a similar experience to a glass-bottomed boat. We saw a lot of coral, but it was all pretty bland, not the sort of highly coloured stuff normally associated with coral. An interesting and enjoyable experience, nevertheless.
Hey, as promised, we are in the middle of the forest, and you can see why it is called the forest, ladies and gentlemen. It consists of a lot of soft top corals. Those are the corals looking more like plants, right? We just passed it by, and that area was very important for the development of the babies because a lot of moms use that as a nursery. This is where they lay their eggs, and when the hatchlings comes out, where they can eat, but more importantly, plenty of spots where they can hide in case of any danger. So the probability of the babies reaching adulthood is much more higher in areas just like that than anywhere else here on the reef. Now here on the left hand side, we just turned into the inlet bay, ladies and gentlemen. Because on the left right here we have an inlet bay, and when these inlet bay water and the ocean water, when these two mix, even though it looks like the same kind of water, they still differ in temperature slightly, which means the colder water will drop to the bottom, and as it drops to the bottom, it will stir up the sand, the minerals, and so on, and the warmer water will take all the way up to the surface. That's why on the right hand side you can see the visibility is turning gradually into non-visible, and that is all because of the beautiful
Look at all these. Little boy. Yeah. Wow. So this side down a little bit.
This is going to squeeze you out. It's coming on this side. The other side. Who's that? I'm just going to move it on the other side.
Hold it up there. Yeah.
He is like, yes! You wave it to him. Oh my God!
She has
Wave again. Wave again. Lily, say hi. You're blowing bubbles.
Going off. Showboating now.
Fish. Hi. He lives with the fishies. Wow.
very well. You're all looking at it.
Yes, yes. I was sharing it. Doors that were outside the day.
Oh,
And those purple tubes are actually sponges. And sponges are one of the oldest living organisms that we have on the planet. Those sponges, when they're forming with tiny shards of glass in them as a form of protection, which means almost no animal are capable of eating those sponges. But there's always an exception, ladies and gentlemen, and in this case it is the hawksbill turtle, because they adapted themselves to start eating those sponges, and nowadays they are capable of eating about 1,000 pounds of sponges a year as a part of their diet. Don't worry, you're being followed by pirates, ladies and gentlemen, but the Captain Hank can handle himself, so it's going to be good. Alright, as we're moving forward, we can see all this beautiful coral. And as most of you already know, corals are not plants, but rather these are animals. To be more specific, these are microscopic animals called polyps, and they live in colonies on top of each other. And it is their exoskeleton which is forming the corals that we're looking at. One of the most well-known and most recognizable coral that we have on the planet is probably the brain coral, and that is because it resembles the pattern of our brain. Some of us who are using it, ladies and gentlemen. But the cool thing is, these brain coral also have a very exceptionally long lifespan, since they can live up to 800 years, ladies and gentlemen. And there's another coral I would like to warn you to stay away from, which is called the fire coral. The reason I tell you to stay away from it, because as soon as the fire coral come in contact with your skin, you will be having a sensation to the parrotfish, ladies and gentlemen. They are responsible for all these beautiful white sandy beaches. Now that we have established that, the next question is, what about the blue water? It is a direct result of the sand, ladies and gentlemen. That's because the sand is reflective, just like snow, of the sunlight in the sky, hence why the water appears blue. Where we are sailing right now, especially on the left hand side, if you look down, you can see the drop off, ladies and gentlemen. The drop starts at 800 feet. And since the sand is all the way down at 800 feet, that means the light of the sky will take a little bit longer to reach the bottom, to reflect right back to the surface. Hence why here on the left hand side the water appears much more dark blue in color than in comparison to the right hand side, where the sand is just below the water surface, so the water appears much more light blue in color, ladies and gentlemen. And that is how we got our beautiful turquoise water and the white sandy beaches. Alright, now we have established that, ladies and gentlemen, and we know now what the parrotfish are capable of. We can see the parrotfish a little bit like the underwater bees, ladies and gentlemen, because they are very important to the coral reefs down here. Without these parrotfish, most of the reefs will disappear, ladies and gentlemen, and the reason for that is they have very strong jaws and teeth, ladies and gentlemen. And even though we name them after the birds, their behaviors are more like cows, as these creatures are grazers, and they love grazing on algae, and especially algae that grows and gets stuck onto corals. But each and every time they go and take a bite of the algae, they also take a piece of coral alongside with it. They chew the coral, they swallow it, but they cannot digest it. But as we know, everything that we put into our mouth and it goes to the digestive system has to come out on the other side at some point. And for the parrotfish, when the coral comes out, it comes out in the form of sand. And not just a tiny bit of sand, ladies and gentlemen. So let me rephrase that so you can understand what I'm saying. When these guys got their job description, on their card it stood, "You shall be pooping sand for a living." That's what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen. And they're very, very...
In Dominica, we took an excursion down the river into the rainforest in a rowing boat to observe some spectacular vegetation.
It lives on its own. This is the same tree, the swamp bloodwood, with the large roots. They grow in all forms, all different sizes and all styles. That's why people ask if they use them to make furniture. No. The wood of these trees are too soft for furniture. Now look at the plant sitting on the tree stem. The plant with the large leaf. It's called elephant ear as a local name. Wild anthurium is the name of that plant with the large leaf. This is an epic because if you cut them, it comes out from them a red sap like blood. Like a human being, they will bleed. But you find them only in a swamp forest. Look at this one here on our right. Look how long this tree can grow their roots across the river bank, protecting the bank of the river from soil erosion. And the type of roots that these trees have is known as buttress roots. Large buttress roots is what these trees normally have. We don't use the wood of these trees for building boats, houses, or furniture because the wood of these trees are very soft, and as soon as they are dry, termites come into them. But the wood, when they are dry, we use them for fire, to roast breadfruit, or to cook outside of the home with firewood. We use them as feed on. It is away from the riverbank because it doesn't have any fruit on the riverbank. No ripe bananas, no ripe papayas, mangoes, hummingbirds, and banana quid. You find in that yellow flower, that beautiful pink flower here. In that tree with the pink flower, you can find a couple of them going around because they feed on nectar, and that's why. If you manage to see any little bird with a yellow and black, that is a banana quid. These are banana quids. Not so much hummingbirds this morning. I don't know why. But they were yesterday morning and yesterday evening. Lots of hummingbirds. We have 4 species of them. Dominica. You can find naturally. Even V-shapes you can find naturally and elbow shapes from this tree. The seeds you're sitting on this board is coming from the stem of the cedar tree. Cut them into huge planks, using some of the planks to make these seats, and cut in the square frame for this boat from the planks. Where it comes the spring, probably about 10-15 miles, but we only complete 1 mile by boat. Yes, about a meter. The tide goes up and down about a meter. And also Londonderry, the northeast coast of Dominica.
How much? It's 4 US.
This is gone on the Indian River. This is gone in Titu Gorge in the south part of the island of Loda. It was also done in Vilka's old factory shoot. We'll see a Kodak moment here for pictures as well. Because this part of the river comes from another area of the mountain, but it is also part of the Indian River.
Welcome to the Nature Isle. Fresh coconut water. One a day, keep the doctor away. Get some nuts in your nuts. Fresh coconut. Cocoa snooze. Anyone?
Yep.
Let me get it back. I'm just gonna open it. Anybody else so I know exactly how much to open? No, thank you. One person.
This river is called the Indian River. It is because many years ago we have the Caribbeans that came from South America. The Caribbeans are very hostile and resilient, and they came from South America paddling their canoe, sailing. When they travel in all the Caribbean islands, getting into Dominica, where they used to live, on the bank of this river before. And this is why this river is called the Indian River. Guys, we are on one of Dominica's most beautiful river on the island. Out of 365 rivers, this river is the only one we can do by boat. It's called the Indian River.
iguana up on that branch.
Big tail.
Green. Up above your head. There's his face.
Oh, yeah.
If you remain on the ground, they'll not be able to be warm because the vegetation is so thick.
Yeah.
And the shade on the ground, they'll not be able to be warm.
Actually, it's turquoise colour.
Yeah.
It was like petrol blue. Possible.
Very tiny. They are miniature.
This is the iguana.
Big moaning.
Bend your head, bend your head. Bend your head. Bend your head. Bend your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Overtaking.
It's not a race.
No prizes.
He gave me the opportunity to go, so I took it.
Fair enough. Smile.
Sorry for gripping you again. Unless you want to sit on the outside. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, pardon.
These beautiful flowers you can see here are called ginger lily. These flowers are planted in that area. It is to beautify the area or to bring more birds to this area. Parasite up here. There, this is parasite. Squeezing and strangling its host, killing its host. Where its host suffer lack of oxygen, its host dies, rotten and fall.
In St Kitts, we joined an excursion to an old sugar plantation, including some time exploring its beautiful gardens, followed by a guided walk in the surrounding rainforest. As a poignant reminder of the past, this plaque informs us that this bell tower served to control the daily lives of the slaves working on this estate, from the start of the day's work, return from the fields, and the time to return for the night.
Also, what they used to use the chief was to communicate. The form of communication. Go back that way. Back down. Okay. Form of a communication. No.
Hit it with the stone.
Huh? Yeah, good. Yeah. Communication, what they used to do back in the day.
You hit it with the stone.
Use this stone. And communicate. Now, if my colleague wasn't there, and I want to tell him where I am, go by the waterfall and take a picture, you can reach it. This is the time if you want to wait, okay? You want to go close to the water?
Another reminder of the colonial past, a large copper trough made in Falkirk, Scotland. A tree to steer well clear of. It's covered in very sharp spikes. The guide told us that a typical punishment meted out to slaves was to be tied firmly to the tree and then whiplashed, with unimaginable consequences. Our excursion on Tortola in the British Virgin Islands comprised a high-speed catamaran trip to Norman Island, the alleged inspiration for Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, together with a bus ride through the mountains of Tortola. Our catamaran passed quite close to our ship, Queen Mary 2. On arrival at Norman Island, our guide gave us some background to its alleged inspiration for Treasure Island. Apparently, a party of British Royal Navy personnel decided to investigate a cave at the water's edge. One of the seamen was balancing himself with a stick inside the cave and suddenly hit something with a hollow sound. On investigation, this turned out to be a chest filled with treasure. The whole party of seamen subsequently became very rich and resigned from the Navy. True? Who knows?
you.
Here on your right, you're looking right down at King Garden Bay. That is one of our beaches there, one of our famous beaches. King Garden Bay have all the water sports, jet skis, whatever you name it. That is down there at King Garden Bay.
All that's missing is a beach.
Despite the traffic, Funchal is quite an interesting place to wander around with some nice churches and gardens. Some spiky trees that you really don't want to get too near. Not quite sure what this is. Inside the cathedral